The news is full of it. American leaders, politicians, and the media all say China is a threat, a military threat, a threat to global peace. But what if that's not the real story? What if the real reason for the West's anger at China has nothing to do with military power and everything to do with something much simpler? Money and profits? You see, for the last 20 years, the U.S. has gone from working with China to openly being against it. American media and politicians constantly talk about how bad China is. The U.S. government has put limits on trade and sent more military forces near China. They want to make China seem like a major global threat. But while China's growing power does worry the U.S., it's not the threat our leaders talk about. To understand this, you have to look at how the global economy works. This system is set up so that rich countries, like the U.S., get rich by using cheap workers and resources from poorer countries. This helps huge companies make massive profits. When China opened its doors in the 1980s, it became a key part of this system. It gave Western companies a huge number of cheap, skilled workers. Back then, China wasn't an imperialist country. It was a country that imperialist nations were investing in. Think about Apple. Most of its products are made by Chinese workers. You often see designed in California, manufactured in China. One expert figured out that without Chinese labor, an iPod would have cost over $500 more. But something big changed 20 years ago. Wages in China have gone way up. In 2005, a Chinese factory worker earned less than $1 an hour. Today, that's over $8 an hour. That's more than 8 times the old wage. Chinese workers have seen their paychecks grow more than workers in any other developing country. This is a huge historical shift. There are 2 main reasons. First, China's economy has created so many jobs that it has used up all its extra workers. This gives workers more power to ask for better pay. Second, under President Xi Jinping, the government has become more involved. It has improved public health and housing, which has made life much better for workers. These changes are great for China, but they're a big problem for Western companies. Higher wages in China mean lower profits for them. So what's the plan for these rich countries? They want to get back to having cheap workers and resources. One way is to move their factories out of China to other poorer countries like India or Vietnam. But this is expensive and difficult. The other way is to force China's wages back down. This is why the U.S. is trying to weaken China as government and economy, so they can get back to cheap labor and unfair trade deals. The West's claims that China cheats on its currency are just a distraction. China stopped that policy over 10 years ago. An expert from the IMF even says the Chinese currency might be worth too much now. The West was happy when the currency was low. They only started complaining when Chinese wages started to rise. The second big reason for the hostility is technology. Over the last decade, China has focused on creating its own advanced technology. It now has the world's largest high-speed rail network and builds its own passenger planes. The country is quickly advancing in clean energy, microchips, and artificial intelligence. It's doing all this even though its average income is still 80% lower than in rich countries. This is a serious problem for the old system, which relies on rich countries having a monopoly on technology to keep poorer countries dependent. China has broken that monopoly. Its new technology is giving developing nations cheaper options. This is a fundamental challenge to the whole system. The U.S. tried using trade limits to stop this, but it failed. It only pushed China to become more self-reliant. Now, the U.S. has started to create a feeling of war. The goal is to start an arms race, like the one with the Soviet Union, to force China to spend money on military tech instead of growing its economy. The hope is to bankrupt China. The Western claim that China is a military threat is just propaganda. China's military spending per person is 10 times less than America's. The U.S. and its allies spend 7 times more than China. The U.S. has hundreds of military bases worldwide. China has only 1. Over the last 40 years, China hasn't fired a single bullet in international conflict, while the U.S. has attacked dozens of countries. In the end, The West is mad at China because China is becoming independent. It's building its own economy and technology, and that is a threat to the entire system that Western countries have built. The West won't give up its power easily, and that's why they are pushing so much propaganda.